Please be seated. Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, Minister Charles Griffith, Minister of Youth, Sport and Community Empowerment, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Senator Dr. the Honorable Chantal Moreau-Knight, Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office, the Most Honorable Alice Jordan, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sport, Youth and Community Empowerment, Mr. Randolph Harris, President of the Barbados Football Association, Mr. Omari Eastman, Coordinator of the Prime Minister's Cup. Good morning. I will start by saying how intrigued and excited I am by the launching of this tournament. And to get things kicked off, we're going to start with a prayer by Mr. Eastman.
Let us stand as we pray. We bow our heads. Eternal and Most High Father, we come before you this morning. Thank you, dear God, for life. Thank you, dear God, for health and strength and the simple things that we could talk, we could move, we could hear. Father and God, I ask, dear God, as we enter this press release and launch this morning, that you will guide us and everyone that will play an active role. You will be near to them, dear God, and give them support, help them to speak with confidence, help them, dear God, to project their voices clearly. I ask, dear God, that as we pray for this tournament, that will span 14 weeks, that it be violent-free. And we ask, dear God, that the footballers would appreciate the semi-professional league we are trying to start. And we ask that they would give up their best. And Father and God, everything we ask in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Omari. Please be seated. I wish to welcome the Minister of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment to give the welcome remarks.
The Honorable Prime Minister, Mayor Amor Motley, Permanent Secretaries Jordan, and my own PS, others at the head table, good morning. Let me start by saying that those of you who know me know that I'm not a party animal, but I'm actually here, if you use your imagination, with a grass skirt doing the most. And I'll tell you why. It is not every day that as a minister, you get to walk on history's page. You just heard the national anthem talking about history's page. PM will probably not say it, but I don't think there's another government in the history of Barbados that would have triggered a semi-professional league in sports, and we're doing it here this morning. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome all of you. I welcome the Cup. Just over a year ago, I was in discussion with a guy from Jamaica about starting or pairing with him to do a professional league as it relates to basketball, because I believe that it was a need for us to move in that direction as far as sports is concerned. Visionary leadership, and we had the Prime Minister putting this on the table in relation to football. Our mass-based sport, I think it is the one that we can do a lot in terms of how we treat the football going forward. 24 teams, right down to the third division in this country. And I can only imagine what will happen with the success of this team, that maybe next year, government will not be the person who is footing the bill, but private sector would come on board and see the need for us to deal with sports at a totally different level. This particular tournament is touching every single aspect of my ministry: youth, sports, and community empowerment, because we're using the fields by the National Sports Council to trigger this at community level, and I know that it will generate a lot of income for those persons who, like me, would want to buy fish cakes on a regular. So I want to welcome you to this tournament. Like I said, ever so often as the Minister of Sports, I have been walking on the history's page. But this particular event in terms of moving our sports to the semi-professional level can only augur well for the development of sports on a whole in this country. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I wish to invite Mr. Randolph Harris, the president of the Barbados Football Association, to bring some greetings from the BFA.
Madam PM, other members of cabinet, and specially invited guests. But I think the most important people here today are the people who come to represent the clubs to make this competition the best that it can be. I just want to say that for a long time, we here in football have been saying that most of the politicians use the game of football for their own promotion. Here it is. In April, we will have a tournament that is supported by the government that the players will benefit. It is the first time it has happened with support from the government like this. And I want everybody to do the best to make sure that this gives a creditable picture of football in the island so that we can start to get together and make this game what it should be. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to give kudos to the organizing committee, and I really want you to support this tournament, to support the teams, and make sure that this is just the beginning of great things to happen to football that the players can benefit from. I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Moving along, I'm going to ask the tournament coordinator, Mr. Omar Eastman, to give an overview of the project.
Thank you, Shane. Protocol having been established, some of you may not know me. Some of you may know me very well. But allow me to introduce myself. I am Omari Eastman. As you would have heard, I am the chairman of the organizing committee of the inaugural Prime Minister's Cup. I am tasked this morning to summarize the tournament and the excitement it's going to bring to the communities across Barbados. The tournament is scheduled to run for 14 weeks, starting at the end of August and concluding on Independence Day. The tournament consists of 24 teams and are represented from all divisions across football in this country. It is a structured semi-professional tournament where players and management are paid each game. Along with the players being paid each game, there's also a total purse of almost $150,000 in prizes, in winnings. The winner of the tournament will pocket $100,000. Initially, all preliminary games will be played on community fields around the island, with the knockout games moving to the Wildry AstroTurf, and ideally the finals to be played at Kensington Oval. There will also be a mini draft for teams not participating in the tournament. The teams participating in the tournament are all Premier League teams, the first 6 first division teams, the first 4 second division teams, and the top 4 in third division, how the standings would have finished after the 2024 season. So therefore, the mini draft, players and teams not included can enter this draft, and there will be a draft, official notification will go to the clubs, so players not involved could enter the draft and be drafted into the teams that are participating. There will also be trades. So after you have been drafted into teams, if you want to trade with a specific team, once the teams can agree that they would exchange the player, that is also allowed. However, there are no transfers from team to team. Everything must be done through the draft. So for me, football has always been a source of structure and discipline. And the Prime Minister would have highlighted for this semi-professional tournament, no violence. So I want to encourage you and let you know from early there will be a heavy police presence at the community fields. And we hope to embrace this. And as I say, football is a sport that has discipline. And for me, again, it has given me discipline from my early morning training sessions when I used to play for Barbados, multiple team practices a week, to mental preparation before games. And these lessons I have learned in football have stayed with me throughout my life. So football has created bonds for me regionally and internationally, as far back as I can remember. And there's some persons I still hold very dear to my heart up to this day. So playing for Barbados football, the opportunity football has given me to tour the world free of cost, places that I wouldn't even think of going, that I would pay for a paid vacation. And that has stayed with me, and I only hope that in this tournament, some young footballer, or more than one, could embrace these opportunities that are here, because the opportunities that I had, were limited. Now there are way more. You have scholarships, you have trials, you have exchange programs, and I hope that the footballers listening can embrace these opportunities. Therefore, as I wrap, I am indeed honored to be part of the Prime Minister's Cup organizing committee. I assure all of us that this initiative is great in its own right, a way to tap into our talent on island. We want to give them purpose, allowing them to thrive in structured settings while setting them a chance to having a financial reward. They call football the beautiful game, and I often wondered that was an ode or to its simplicity. However, the true beauty in football lies in its true ability to transform persons' lives, to unearth virtues of a person that may lay dormant and never to be excavated. And as chairman of the Prime Minister's Cup, I am truly dignified to welcome all of you to the launch of this illustrious competition and to the future of what football could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Omari, for that overview. I wish to now welcome the Prime Minister of Barbados to give the featured address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. President of the Barbados Football Association, Minister Griffith, Chairman of the Prime Minister's Cup, distinguished guests, most of you I know well. If I'm to start how Omari started, you know me, I know you. And I know you because at a previous time in my life, I took the time to get to understand the game of football and to work on what was the first wetting of the feet in trying to get a semi-professional league going. As they say, or as I say, I'm a Jimmy Cliff girl. And I say that because there's a song that has anchored me throughout my life. I look at young men like Shane and wonder if they know it, because I assume that I'm still young, but the gray hair is telling a different story. But although Matt, I seem to have more than you. Jimmy Cliff told us you can get it if you really want, but you must try and try and try. You'll succeed at last. I know what it is for us to put on a tournament and to try to fund it purely from gate revenue and from sponsorship. And I understood clearly then what the limitations were, such that it is easy for me as Prime Minister to make the policy decisions that I am making now. Barbados suffers from a lack of scale and a lack of size. If we had the population base of Trinidad, or we had the population base of even Guyana, we would be in a far better position to see entrepreneurship rise and flourish in this particular area. try as we did, Randy, I don't think, other than for the finals, we never got above 1,500 active attendance per game, which meant that once you started to limit your revenue, you would always end up in a deficit because of the outlay from paying players to paying referees and other match people. And if the National Stadium had been there, we might have been able to rally out. But from the time you had to move to Kensington, and you then had to pay $4,900 a night with respect to diesel for the lights, it became a non-starter, full stop. In terms of the advertising market, Rivellino and any of you who have worked in that area, you know that it is very shallow. And there are not a lot of companies who will step up to the plate, and they are also looking at many other national activities, from cultural activities right back through. So the bottom line is that one of the limitations of being small is that the state sometimes must take the lead in terms of entrepreneurship. When Barbados became an independent country, Errol Barrow understood that. And that is why the Hilton Hotel was built at a time when no Barbadian private sector entity would have taken that scale of risk to build that scale of hotel in the context of a country this size. Today, we stand to be able to say that if we are serious about the clear determination that we must be global citizens with Bajan roots, then we have to build a platform upon which that can happen. For cricket, it has come as a result of more than a century of administration and more than a century of the game being played in communities, not just at the BCA level, but at the BCL level. And I'm happy that within another week or two, I will meet with the chairman of the National Sports Council and the Barbados Cricket Association, both of whom have submitted to me papers on the revitalization of the Barbados Cricket League. In addition, the consultant from the Ministry of Sports, Mr. Jamal Smith, will also help anchor us, and we have already committed, as you know, not just to have borrowed money to refurbish Kensington, but also to be able to develop the high-performance indoor facility, which will make a defining difference to the quality of persons that will not only play cricket, but will belong to the ecosystem of cricket. Because whether we like it or not, this has now become the second most important sport globally, and there is a global ecosystem in which Barbados can have a preferential and competitive advantage. In football, there is no doubt that the passion of the average young person is there. Not because they may not also like cricket, because most great cricketers I know like football, but because it is affordable. How much a set of gear cost, Jamal, for cricket? Huh? Minimum of $500. What's the first thing you need for football? The boots. Balls you can get from a dime a dozen from anybody. Not true? So balls are available throughout the community. And even if a fella don't got football boots, what he's do? Huh? Play barefoot or play with sneakers. One of the two. The point is, and when he's good enough, what can happen? Somebody can get a pair of boots. You understand? Because the boots are easier to buy for a fella than $500 in gear in cricket. So drunk or sober, apply your heart to wisdom. And the reality is that we have, therefore, a ready market among our young people, boys and girls, with respect to football. I had the honor, and Randy, I think on the first day that my cabinet was sworn in, the last meeting I held on that day was with the Secretary General of FIFA, who has remained a good friend of Barbados's. And indeed, for the women's football, last year she invited us to Australia, and I was Australia. Well, I'm foolish. Because I went to the one before in France. And in fact, it was at the one before in France that I sat next to Dr. Tedros, and you can almost say that the opening game of the women's football tournament was at the seed of saving Barbados through COVID, because it was because of that engagement that we were then able to make the linkages with Dr. Tedros and WHO that carried us safely through COVID. And that's why I say to people, you know, Sahara St. John told me, don't look at anybody or anything and judge them, because you don't know the stories behind where they stand and how they got there. The reality is that whether it is boys or girls playing football, this country needs greater structure and greater opportunities in football if our people are to rise to the next level. Some will be able themselves to go on and find lucrative contracts. Some will be able to work in the ecosystem of football, which, as you know, is still the most powerful financial ecosystem in sports globally. We have a duty, therefore, to be able to start to lift our game up. And knowing what I know, and knowing the limitations of both the Barbados Football Association as well as the market within which it operates, then if we want to have a developmental role, the government must now step in to play that role. Mercifully, we were able, thank you, Mr. Dale, we were able, through my experience with Randy and then through David Thompson's experience with the constituency clinics, to be able to see what the ecosystem could offer us. We are satisfied, and some may ask, well, why you don't go back to the constituency clinics? Because I do not want to politicize football in this country. I do not want to politicize sports in this country. You have never heard of a Mia Motley tournament in any constituency. I do not support it because I believe that sports and culture are to be unifying features in our society and not divisive features, and I feel strongly about that. Secondly, I feel that those countries that have exhibited strong administrative capacity in sports have done well. Jamaica has more than a century's legacy in athletics administration. Is there any wonder why Jamaica does what it does, coming out of every nook and cranny of Jamaica? Barbados has more than a century of administration in cricket. Is there any wonder why this country has produced more cricketers globally per capita than any other 166 square miles on the planet Earth? Are we beginning to see and connect the dots? And if therefore we are then to be able to change our fortunes in football, then we need to be able to ensure that we have the administrative structures as well as the opportunities in tournaments such as this. I hope that at some point there will be the equivalent of a regional professional football league, because quite frankly, we need the scale in order for it to work. We start with semi-professional, because even though a fellow will receive $125 for the first game for playing, in our day, it was $75. So we brought it up to be able to meet the inflation that has taken place since then. But even though a fellow will receive that per game, at this point we know that is not sufficient for him to live on. But at this point we also know that that $125 will make a meaningful difference to a lot of fellas in terms of them being able to have that once or twice a week in terms of the games that are playing. Of course, the fees increase as you go up the tournament. We recognize that television ultimately will be critical towards building the audience, because you need a fan base. And I hope that this will allow us to do what we couldn't do with the Lion Pelican, which is to break through the 1,500 threshold in terms of active people coming. And we kept the prices deliberately low at $10 in those days in order to be able to make it affordable to people. We were also able, as you heard Charles reinforce as an objective, to be able to foster community investment and community entrepreneurship at the very time when the country is going through its lull, because tourism tends to shut, regrettably, still into a winter-summer format. And I hope, Ryan, that we will see with your leadership of the BHTA and the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.'s leadership, the flattening of that summer and winter, because the last time I checked, I never seen a snowfall about here in August or September. But in the interim, what happens? People are laid off, people are not necessarily earning at the same level, and these activities give people an opportunity to be able to earn a little trala as we go forward with respect to the time of year, August 25th to November 30th, typically the slowest economic quarter in the country. In addition to that, you heard from Omari the whole issue of fitness, and I want to address this deeply. And you have to become our allies in this. A youngster will see you taking a drink. Youngster may even see you doing something that the police don't want to see you do. If they begin to believe that that is what they must aspire to, then they could as well pass the ball to the next generation. I want to repeat myself. This game is structured on a tiebreaker. The tiebreaker is what? Additional time. Additional time means what? That instead of running boat for 90 minutes, you run boat for how much more? An extra 30 minutes. That means that lungs under pressure. Not true? Fitness under pressure. And there are too many people who approach sports without approaching it from the perspective of wellness and fitness. And that has to change in Barbados. And we need community by community by community to be able, and Mark, I am appealing to you because you have spent your life teaching, and you were the first one to tell me as a young Minister of Education that we must talk with and not talk to or talk at people. We need to talk with our young people from 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and even the ones who are teenagers now, and to explain to them why their diet and why their fitness and why the things that undermine fitness like alcohol and like smoking will not help them if they intend to be a serious athlete. That does not mean that when you're off season that you might not have a drink here and there, but the reality is that you and I both know that once that becomes too much, what happens to the body? It starts to underperform. And therefore, the very thing that you want, which is opportunity, who is denying it? Not a stranger, but yourself to yourself. And that has to be the message that goes out there. If this tournament achieved nothing else but to change the culture and the ecosystem surrounding how our sporting people prepare and sustain themselves and make themselves capable of being the best that they can be such that they go to the next level, then I would say hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Because this issue of wellness is a habit, and it has to stay with you for life. And those who inculcate that habit from an early stage have a better chance of sustaining it. Those who come to it later in life, like me, got to always fight up. And I am fighting to tell people that. You understand? So that we have to understand that this is an individual choice. But if we don't expose our children to it, if we don't value it, if we don't hold on to it, we are going to find that this thing is going to have diminishing returns. And I say to you, for you to perform on stage, Mr. Dale, you could go and perform for 2 hours without being fit. You understand? And that is perhaps why a lot of artists nowadays is only get 10 and 15-minute performances. I'm not going to tell you where the performances are, but the reality is that performance is performance. If you can't perform, you can't perform. Lung capacity matters, and balance matters. And I want that message to go through to our youngsters as we go forward. But you know what else matters? Your ability to live and to sustain your family. And Matt, your idea is one that we have been looking at to be able to see how we can work with both the Barbados Vocational Training Board, the National Transformation Initiative, to give our athletes who may be stellar on the field, on the court, when they are young, but who, once that goes, find themselves without capacity to earn a living. Nowhere to go but in boat, People look at it and say, but that man used to be real good. But you ever see how he play on the field? Huh? You ever see him do any? You ever see him dribble? Boom, boom, boom. And people can talk about it and look on, and that's the end of that, and nobody don't know where the man eating the next food from or how he's sustaining his family. I have said that the fundamental difference with this tournament must be a clear understanding of the profiles and the opportunities for every player so that we work collectively between the public and the private sector to ensure that we put these persons on a sustainable path for a livelihood. Whether it is them developing a trade, whether it is them going into the cybersecurity courses or the artificial intelligence courses that we're doing, that the Student Revolving Loan Fund is placing funds there. Almost everybody who has gone into these courses have been placed with jobs, not just locally, but internationally. We are here now to manage one by one by one, and that is why Mr. Archer from the Economic Enfranchisement Unit in the Prime Minister's office is also integral to this entire exercise, because we must see who is playing, we must hear who is playing, we must understand and feel the road that they're walking, and we must try our best. Will we be successful 100%? I don't know. But I know that you don't get to 100% without passing 60, 70, 80, and 90. And I know that it is 75 and up or 80 and up, depending on which university or which school you're talking about. So that for me to get to 100 requires full effort. And it means, therefore, along the way, we are taking people and ensuring that their participation in the sports in this country, whether it is this or ultimately cricket or whatever, will be a life-changing opportunity for them. So that when a youngster sees it, youngster knows this is what makes the difference in my family life, so that my brothers and sisters who ain't got the skills that I got are also able to benefit from it. Consequential upon that, where we hold out to be able to see how we can anchor these youngsters who are going to be playing among the established teams in the BFA, will be, you want something, I want something. You got to listen and come to a few sessions on self-confidence building, esteem, conflict resolution, and entrepreneurship. And a big set of topics, them three. Them three. Why? There is too much anger and too much anxiety in this country. Who ain't angry, anxious. Can't work. And all of us know that. If it was home at you, you would have a responsibility to deal with it and tell, cool down. We're coming with all that temper. You can't fly up so in here. You understand? There's more than one way to solve problems. You understand? And the notion that even separate from that, we have the kinds of fights that we are. And regrettably, you see that thing called a phone? You think fights only started in Barbados 2-3 years ago? Or 5 years ago? The fights was happening ever since. I practice criminal law, so I know more than most of you. 35 years ago, 36 years ago, I started practicing criminal law. But the phone, the social media, creates a psychological problem because it's in your face every minute. And when it's in your face every minute, your brain don't get a chance to reset and come back down. And therefore, there are some people who can handle panic. There's some people who can handle stress. There's some people who get anxious. And the heart starts fluttering and they can't study nothing else. Why these young girls don't stop fighting? Why these young boys don't stop fighting? What is it that a gun... You ever see a dead man walk yet? Anybody in here ever see a dead man walk? When you're dead, you're dead. And the notion that a person could want to die in their teens or their 20s or their 30s. But if you wanted to die so young, tell your mother so from young. I'm serious. And this is the time for real talk. And I look forward, I have asked that I be part of the activities for the workshops? Because I want the opportunity to be able to reason. I want the opportunity for us to know that in the same way you play together as a team on a football pitch, you play together as a team, as a country. And in the same way, there may be one or two who want to play the fool. You're going to get one or two who want to play the fool at the country level too. But that must not stop you from doing the right thing, because you're doing it for the right reasons. And in doing it, you know who you are saving. And I am saying to you that this investment, therefore, is about building people. Sir Frank Worrell, we will celebrate his 100th anniversary on the 1st of his birth, on the 1st of August. Everybody in here know Frank Worrell? Everybody? Frank Worrell was the first black man to captain the West Indies team. He took the West Indies team to Australia in the 1960 to 61 series, long before I was born. Australia had legislation that discriminated against anybody looking like me. That was their laws. But a black team goes to Australia, and what does Frank Worrell, who born in Bank Hall, near where your pharmacy is, what does Frank Worrell tell the Australians and the West Indies team? We have come here not simply to win matches, but to win hearts and minds. The same black team that if they lived in Australia would be the victims at that time of legislative discrimination, left Australia at the end of the tour, and you know what happened? They had a ticker tape parade. You know what a ticker tape parade is? We don't see them fancy parades on Fifth Avenue and thing in the States, when they bring all the ticker tape and all the bands and all the people lining the streets, like if royalty coming down, or big celebrity, as Shabba Ranks would call it, a big celebrity coming down. The West Indies team, Gary Sobers, Wes Hall, all of them men left Australia with all the Australian people on the road. Go and look at it on YouTube and look for it yourself and see. And tell me if that cannot and must not be a point of inspiration for us today. 64 years later, to be able to set targets for ourselves and to work out how are we going to win hearts and minds. The hearts and minds of the families of the footballers. The hearts and minds of the public of Barbados to see it as their solemn duty to come out and to give this support, rather than just waiting and working to see a little clip on a YouTube or a social media thing pass around about that kind of shot. If we don't build the bonds to sustain our people and to sustain ourselves, then you're going to find that it won't be Hurricane Beryl or Hurricane whatever name it come that will undermine our ability to live here. It will be we ourselves, by our behavior and by our choices, will have led to it. Now, I am not a preachy person. We got enough of them around the place. But what I am is a person that understands the importance of setting goals and being faithful to those goals. We believe in our young people. Every government since Grantley Adams, everyone has come through and said, the taxpayers of this country will educate you regardless of whether your parents got money or not. Because when you are born, you deserve the best possible chance. We have things to do to tighten that educational system. But for the most part, it is better than most. But it is not where we need it to be in order for us to go to the next level. At the same time, the taxpayers agree that all of your dental and medical needs should be covered in this country. Imagine if you lived in a country where every time you go to the clinic, you go look for a piece of change. And we came dangerously close to that in the last decade when both tertiary education and also access to healthcare was compromised because the government didn't have what? No money to do what it needed to do, what it wanted to do. But the other side of that coin is that if it is being made available to you to bring you safely thus far, then you have to act like if your life matters. And you have to act in a way that does not put others at risk. And this tournament is therefore about building out also people who take responsibility for not only their lives, but their communities' lives, their friends' lives. They must win the hearts and minds, not just the games on the field. So, my friends, I have reflected why the government is critical to making this happen. We do not have the scale of investment across the country or the level of crowds that will come that would allow us to be able to do this on a sustainable basis. But we also recognize that to whom much is given, much is expected. There are people like some of you in here who have made this your life. Jack, how long have you been doing this? You understand? The same time I've been in public life. And while I was doing what I was doing, you were coming to me dealing with the North, with what you were doing with the Football League, etc. There are some of you who have given your whole life to this. Same thing with you, Skipper. You understand? Same thing with you, Marcella. I am saying to you that this is our opportunity now to carry this to the next level. The government is just giving you the fuel. We can't make it happen on our own. It is up to you and you and you. We've chosen to go with the Barbados Football Association, Randy, because we believe that the strengthening of the institutional framework for the sport is what is going to allow the sport to flourish and move to the next level. And because I do not want constituency rivalry or partisan rivalry, I should say, we have gone within the bosom of the BFA to make this happen. Yes, there will be security White House style. Deputy Commissioner, you understand? And I ain't hiding my mouth. If foolishness happen, it can done. So we know the rules up front. Because the hardest thing in a sport and a game is to know the rules up front. So I don't want it done. I'm sure you don't want it done. So we're going to work together to make sure it don't done. Because if foolishness happen, it can done. Simple. Secondly, I also know that out of this, we're going to create opportunities for people to come in. I've been working very closely with Clarence Seedorf and trying to see how we can use him and other great masters. The truth is that everything that we talk about with Frank Worrell, have a conversation with Clarence and ask him what he went through as a black footballer in Europe, in the Netherlands. It will turn you. It will turn you into wanting to be an activist. And I'm saying to you that the appreciation of the road that others have had to walk is something that our people need to hear, to understand that there are certain battles that they have the luxury of not having to fight. Having said that, when you move to the next level and the next level and the next level, some of those things will become a little more patent to you, because you will realize that the world is not as fair and not as flat as people would otherwise have you believe. So I hope that the exposure to masters, as well as the exposure to opportunities for scholarships or contracts, will become a critical part of this. And that is the other reason we're working in a structured way with the BFA. And Omari knows what we expect in terms of getting that other side of the game and the opportunities going. So my friends, you see me today. I hope that I will be able to ease in and out as a member of the crowd, just as I normally do, without any fanfare, and that the next time that I speak in this context will be to the team players themselves as part and parcel of the seminars that we want to run. I won't call them seminars, but the sessions, the reasoning sessions that we want to run with the players, which I believe to be absolutely critical for all of us to be able to win the hearts and minds and not just the games. I hope that this institution here now, the Prime Minister's Cup, will come to be a critical part of the building out of our social capital of our nation, giving youngsters a chance that they would not otherwise have to be able to display the results of their discipline, their commitment to wellness, their proficiency, and their art as a footballer. And if we can achieve that, then we will look back on this day and realize that the rain which met us when we came in ultimately became the sun that greets us as we leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I now wish to open the floor for questions from the media. Okay, if there are none,
Thank you very much. You want to stand? Yes, sir. I guess everybody in the room can hear you. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning again to everyone. Protocol have already been established. Just a question for the Prime Minister. I know you mentioned development and sustainability in terms of this tournament. We are the 7th month into the year, and there's not been women's football. And I know our female footballers may be watching on from the sideline thinking, we are always left to see the guys, take the pickings. So what would you say to those women who, feel left out on this occasion?
I look forward to a proposal that will allow us to do the same thing with women. Look, we had to do the same thing with West Indies cricket. When we came in, West Indies cricket players who were men got certain benefits, the women didn't. Barbados took on the task of speaking to Cricket West Indies, as well as changing also the fiscal benefits that were put in place many years ago only for the men. So the women now get the same benefits from the government of Barbados that the men do for playing for the West Indies, and they do so also with the changes that have also started to be made with pay, conditions of pay for Cricket West Indies. I would like to believe, and I said this earlier to Randy, in fact last year, that women's football needs to take on. There are two things that I really feel strongly about: women's football and beach football. Women's football, for the reasons that you and I both know, that there needs to be equity. And the truth is that I actually do feel that we can probably get there much quicker than most people will anticipate if we have a structured program for women's football. Secondly, however, beach football. Mark, you and I knock about a cultural industry for a large part of our lives. I can say that Nicholas Branca and Arturo Tapin are among the best bass players and saxophonists in the world. Or I can say that Nicholas Branca is the best calypso bass player and producer in the world. He won. I can say that Arturo Tapin is the best Caribbean jazz saxophonist in the world. How we define and what we define in order to be able to get global dominance is important. And in my view, Barbados, with the fact that we are an island, ought to be dominant first and foremost in sports involving the ocean, but secondly, in sports involving the beach, because we have advantage that others don't have. So I really believe that women's football and beach football are the next two areas that we would like to see on a parallel track, but I do not want to take away from what we're doing here. So just because we've started does not mean we've finished.
And just one follow-up question from me. In terms of this tournament, we've been here before where we had Lime Pelican, which I can only speak of because that's my time. Can't speak about the best tournament, etc. But in terms of this tournament and sustainability, what advice can you give to, I already mentioned Mr. Ford is here. Hi, Ryan. So, in terms of encouragement for the private sector to carry on and sustain this type of tournament?
I don't think that you're going to get the capacity of the private sector in Barbados to sustain this tournament. You may get some sponsorship here and there. And I told Amari that. I said, don't hurt your head this year. Because first of all, let's get real. Most corporate entities have settled their budgets. in this fiscal year already. So you can start talking to people for next year, and you'll get a contribution which will help offset what the government has to pay. But quite frankly, the government has to anchor this. Our country is simply too small. When we get the kind of air travel or sea travel that makes movement between the countries much more affordable, and that's why I'm a big believer in the ferry, because it opens up sports, both in terms of sporting teams, but also in terms of audience moving around. When we get that, then we can perhaps talk about having a professional league that is anchored purely with respect to the private sector returns, both in terms of gate, broadcast, merchandising revenue, as well as sponsorship. But for the interim, as long as we are just limited to 166 square miles and 270,000 people, then the government has to anchor this to make it happen. That's the bald truth. And as I said, if I didn't live it, I might perhaps need to be persuaded, but I don't need to be persuaded. Anything else?
Good morning, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Anmar Goodrich Boyce, the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation.
Stand up tall, man. You did well in cricket. You did exceptionally well for us. Thank you.
Thank you. My question is to Omari. Obviously, this is welcome news for players. They love the thought of money being involved. Could you shed some more light in terms of the payment structure for the players, the management? I know you also mentioned in excess of probably $150,000 in terms of prices, etc.
So, firstly, to address the cost for each player per game. So, initially, in preliminary stages, each member of a team that is playing, whether you are in the starting 11 or coming on as one of the 5 substitutes, you will receive $100 per game. The substitutes not used would receive half of that. When we get to the round of 16, the cost goes.
125.
That's for round of 16.
No. We had agreed to
25? Okay, so we start at 125, and the subs get half of that. And as we go to the round of 16, it goes to 150. And the quarterfinals, it goes to $200. Semifinals, it goes to $250, and the finals is $300. And that remains for each participating member of the team and the coaching staff. The coaching staff gets the full amount, however, the unused substitutes will get half up to the finals. I'm still in bargaining negotiation that finals night, each team, whether playing third or first, they get the full 300 and not half, but still in negotiation.
And this is without
This is
anything to do with the price.
big prize money, yeah. This is besides the winnings that teams that get to the Final Four would receive.
All right, the final question.
Okay, and just in terms of you said earlier, across all divisions, so just give us an idea of the total numbers of persons, or players rather, that are involved.
There are approximately 89 games and 24 teams involved. So a team could carry up to 25 players. So I would actually have to physically calculate it for you. So 24 teams, and the teams carry 25 players and approximately 3 management staff. 675 persons, Marissa.
Outside of the officials.
Outside of the officials. And other match referees and those involved.
Hi, good morning, Brian Clark. I just got a few questions, Omari. You said that violence is an issue. There should be absolutely no violence. Is there any provisions for docking any of the pay with regards to a yellow card or a red card?
Yeah.
As keeping with most professional leagues. I got a few more questions as well.
Yes, so there are special rules that have been put in place. However, we want to discuss with the clubs the rules first. However, we could not have discussed the rules and regulations for this tournament before having the official launch. Protocol will not have allowed that. So ideally, we want to have the launch first, opened by the Honorable Prime Minister, and then subsequently next week, we will have a meeting with the clubs outlining the rules and regulations of the tournament. The Prime Minister was very, very straight, and her words are very striking in discussions about violence and how we're going to approach it and what will happen. So discipline. So even with reference to attending a minimum of certain training sessions called by the clubs, and there are persons who are in positions to actually watch when teams are training for it to happen, to be enforced.
Thank you so much.
I
Appreciate
want
that.
Brian to reinforce that, because it is fundamentally first and foremost about discipline. disciplined teams win matches, not indisciplined teams. And indisciplined teams come about when one man starts to be indisciplined, then two, then three, then four, because one says, if he get away with it, I could get away with it too. So therefore, I've learned from Matt Fingal from early that there is to be a zero tolerance policy to indiscipline. You understand? And that is why I'm prepared to make the investments that we're making, because we want to develop a culture of victory and winning, but a culture of winning depends on a culture of discipline.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. So, with regards to us approaching the hottest months of the year, August, September, is there any provisions in the rules for cooling off periods? Again, sticking with the violence and the fitness themes.
Most games are going to be played at night when the temperatures are a little bit down. What we have agreed to is, as you can see, the drinks on the table, each team will be given 2 cases per game. So it helps with rapid rehydration. Also, we have confirmed doctors that are volunteering their services to be at each game, along with the physio that are mandated to be on the management staff. Yeah, and ambulances will be there outside of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you again for your clarification. I just have one more question,
Sure.
if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
So with regards to the contracts and the players, are you encouraging clubs to have contracts with players for these individual salaries per game?
So ideally, because
Sorry. And if not, with regards to the final prize, is that at the complete discretion of the football clubs to how they distribute the funds?
So we would have discussions with reference to having contracts. What we were advised by lawyers is that because it's amateur situation still at the moment, though we're going to sound professional, it's difficult to have contracts for persons to sign, because to get it in the time frame and for them to honor them the way they want.
That's not true.
Let us be very clear. A contract is as simple as an exchange of letters. People get tied up in this country all the time and say, we ain't got no contract, when in truth, a contract is offer, acceptance,
Supported
and
by
performance consideration. Am I doing what I say I can do? Which is why you may hear people talk about an oral contract. But the reality is that all the clubs need to do is to put a letter in place, and do you accept the terms of the letter? Simple. You understand? And I'm sure that the letter will be drafted for you, and that we will think. But discipline, people need to know the rules and to admit and subject themselves to the rules and regulations up front. The clubs need to do it, and then the members of the clubs need to do it. So if you're not going to turn up for training, you know your thing can get docked. If you get the yellow card or the red card, you know you're going to get docked. So people need to know what are the things up front, and then a man can say, I'm interested or I'm not interested. But everybody knows the rules up front. And once everybody knows the rules, the first thing a fellow would tell me on the block, mistress, there got to be order. If there got to be order on the block, tell me where there got to be in the country.
Thank you so much.
Brian, I'm looking forward to that draft from you as a person involved in football and a lawyer as well that can give me that voluntary.
I can get you a draft, but you're not allowed to share it due to obvious conflicts of interest. Thank you so much for the clarification.
You're welcome, boss.
Okay, so this is the last question now.
Yeah, Trevor Thorne from Commentator Sports Incorporated here. The topic that you just covered was where I was going with my question, that the stipend being paid should be tied to the preparation during the week so that you get a better product during the weekend matches. If they're not tied together, then the weekend matches will continue to be fairly substandard at times. And therefore, I think you should push through with that, where all players, management, etc., automatically understand that you're playing in a particular tournament where the preparation and the match fee are tied together, basically. And that will be, of course, managed, I believe, by the hierarchy of the BFA, who will be checking on the training sessions to make sure that they make the higher mark so that we get a good product during the weekend. So it's not really a question, just basically a comment and tying the two things together. Training X amount of times during the week at a certain standard, and then tying that to the tying that fee onto the match fee in total, so you get a better product during each and every match, basically. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tarn. So that brings us to the end of the question and answer segment. I now invite Danielle Baino to give us the vote of thanks.
The Honorable Prime Minister, Ms. Mia Moore-Motley, members of Cabinet, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ian Branch, President of the Barbados Football Association, Mr. Randolph Harris, representatives from the competing clubs and the local football fraternity, members of the media and other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. It is a profound honor and deep gratitude that brings me to this moment to express my thanks. Today, we are privileged to have our esteemed Prime Minister, Motley, join us, sharing her invaluable insights on the significance of football and its broader impact on sports development, as well as economic and community enhancement. As Omari said, we glowingly refer to football as the beautiful game because of its sheer unpredictability, its power to unite communities through shared fanhood, and its undeniable visual appeal. I would like to thank and commend the Prime Minister for her vision of using football to inspire our youth through the employment of creative youth like Omari, Shane, and myself. They say thank you is the best prayer, so let's say amen to all the thank yous that I'm about to give. I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the staff in the Prime Minister's office. Special mention to Permanent Secretary Elise Jordan and the Division of Culture, Permanent Secretary Addison and Shane Archer. The time we've spent together bringing this initiative together has been truly effective. To Minister Griffith and the Ministry of Sport, Youth and Community Empowerment, thank you for your steadfast support and assistance in executing this tournament. We could not have achieved this milestone launch without your help. I wish to extend my gratitude to the Barbados Football Association, especially Mr. Harris as president, and the executive team for partnering with us in efforts to promote football throughout Barbados. I wish to thank Mr. Neil Murrell and the National Sports Council for allowing us the use of sporting facilities across the island during the duration of this tournament. To the Barbados Police Force, thank you for your dedication. To the Barbados Police Service, thank you for your dedication to keeping us safe every day. We greatly appreciate your commitment by providing police presence at all of our upcoming games. Football is nothing without its players, and I am thrilled by the enthusiastic support from all the clubs, as is evidenced by their presence here today. We are grateful to Barbados Tourism Management, Inc. and the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association for their involvement in our planning process. Their excitement about this tournament, which enhances the sport tourism product in Barbados, is greatly appreciated. To the other organizing committee members, Mr. Omar Eastman, Chairman, Mr. Seth Carrington-Skeet, Mr. Craig Stewart, thank you. Thank you for your selfless effort, your spirited discussions, and matched work ethic and shared camaraderie. Thank you again to Mr. Omar Eastman, clearly a man of numerous talents, for blessing us with prayer. For Seth Turton and Ajane Daniel for soothing our ears with steel pan and song. Thank you to LNL Catering for amazing meet and greet treats. Thank you to the ushers and Connection Songs for amplifying our voices today. Thank you to everyone who attended today to commemorate this goal as we kick off the inaugural Prime Minister's Cup. I assure you that the best is yet to come, so please stay tuned. Finally, an unfeigned thank you to our sponsors for their belief in this theme and our project. Special mention to Mr. Clifford Gooding-Edgell and the Barbados Bottling Company for generously donating Dasani and Powerade to hydrate our teams throughout the entire tournament. Kindly note, if you have not been mentioned, it does not mean that you have been forgotten. I want to say a final thank you to each and every one of you who has contributed and will continue to contribute to making the Prime Minister's Cup a striking success.
Thank you, Danielle. That brings us to full time. We have some refreshments in the room to your right as we leave, and everyone could partake in that. So thank you all for coming out again, and you're free to take part in the refreshments.